Kevin Harvick is in his 23rd and final NASCAR Cup Series season. Throughout his career, especially in the last few years, he's taken on a veteran leadership role and been outspoken, including last season when he regularly criticized NASCAR for its lackluster response to drivers' concerns about safety issues with the next-gen car. After this season, the future Hall of Famer will transition to the Fox broadcast booth, where he will get paid to share his opinions on the overall racing product in the first half of the 2024 schedule. What's interesting to think about is if the Stewart-Haas Racing driver were acting in that broadcast role this week, following NASCAR's decision to change the format of road course racing right in the middle of the playoffs. Happy already has a history with this subject, and it's safe to say he isn't going to be very happy with these latest changes. The history books will show that Kevin Harvick was one of the leaders last season, the first year of the next-gen car, in expressing concerns shared by the drivers about the new car, its safety record, and how NASCAR handled it all. He voiced those concerns on multiple occasions, including at Atlanta earlier in the year.
I think that the most frustrating part of the whole process is the fact that the safety piece to the drivers and the conversation with the drivers, which was asked for by the drivers, was had at the very end of everything.
With so many years behind the wheel, Harvick's voice has influence. NASCAR eventually listened to him and others and began implementing changes which have resulted in an improved safety record this season. Interestingly, that's not the only thing the sanctioning body heard and reacted to from the 2014 Cup Series champion last year. Before the July race on the Indianapolis road course, Harvick was asked about the need for full course cautions during stage breaks at road courses. Unsurprisingly, he had thoughts. In my opinion, there should be no stage breaks. I think the stages should be rolling laps, and when the stage ends, and you score points on that lap. But I think that the stages and all the extra cautions, they just take away from the race. Fast forward to this season. Actually, before it. When NASCAR announced that races at all road courses this year will be the exact format Harvick suggested, drivers would be awarded points during the stage end, but there would be no cautions and stoppages in the action. Looking back on the season's races on the road courses, and the change was viewed as mainly positive, until it wasn't. The first road course race of the year at Circuit of the Americas, fans were pleased with the removal of the stage breaks, and the race received a 72% positive rating in Jeff Gluck's Good Race poll. There was an overall good vibe after the race about no stage breaks. However, those good feelings took a dip at Sonoma, with Martin Truex Jr. stinking up the show and dominating. But then Chicago happened. That race, despite biblical floods, was a huge hit racing through the streets of the Windy City. Just shy of 85% gave the race a thumbs up in Gluck's poll. A little over a month later on the Indy road course, the same thing happened. Fans were happy to see an underdog like Michael McDowell record his second career Cup win. Like COTA, more than 72% thought it was a good race. However, just a week later, the fans soured when William Byron won at Watkins Glen, with less than 40% approving of the race. What's fascinating is comparing the McDowell win versus the Byron win. They were effectively the same with a single dominant car, the same number of cautions, including no cautions during stage breaks, the number of lead changes, and the amount of time for the race. So now, there's one road course race at the Charlotte Roval remaining on the schedule, and what does NASCAR decide to do? Revert back and change the format by reinserting stage cautions and doing so right smack dab in the middle of the playoffs. NASCAR Senior Vice President of Competition Elton Sawyer made his regular appearance on Sirius XM NASCAR Radio this week and explained there were two reasons for the decision.
At the Roval, we will introduce the stage break cautions. And I'm sure the question from our fans and even our competitors is, why do that now? Well, the one reason is that we want to make sure that throughout the playoffs, and in the 10-race Cup Series playoffs, we want to make sure that we were officiating across the board the same way. So now we will be, all of our races will have caution stage break. That includes the Roval here in a few weeks, as you alluded to. And number two, and probably the most important part of this decision making, was if you look back at our 5 previous road course races, although they were competitive, there were some that felt like there were some things we could do differently. Obviously, going back to the stage breaks, caution stage breaks, that would potentially make our races better. So we have the option to pull that lever, working closely with our broadcast partners, our folks at Speedway Motorsports in Charlotte, and our industry stakeholders, and felt like the timing was right to do that as we head into the playoffs and finish up the first round and head into the second round.
Addressing Sawyer's first reason first. NASCAR wanted to make sure it was officiating across the board for all playoff races the same way. Huh? Are you serious? They knew all along that the format for this race would be different, just like the rest of the road course races, when they announced the change. Plus, they had no problems officiating all the other road races without stage breaks. But, as he said, the second reason was most important, and that was the hope of making the races better. Okay, so 3 of the 5 races were viewed favorably, but apparently, in NASCAR's eyes, that wasn't good enough. And to be honest, many fans liked that the races had long green flag runs and limited cautions because it was more like a natural race. Clearly, NASCAR doesn't care about that and is reacting to the last race at Watkins Glen, not the previous 5 races as Sawyer suggested. And incredibly, they somehow believe inserting 2 cautions in the race is going to make the product better. Sawyer also mentioned the broadcast partners. It's not hard to imagine that they were not happy with races running around 2 hours and having to fill a lot of airtime with, God forbid, post-race interviews with way more drivers than usual or something fans genuinely enjoy. Hopefully, Harvick will be one of those interviews, and he can share how he really feels about his last road course race and it including stage breaks. If he doesn't get the camera time, he'll have plenty of time next year at Fox to share what he thinks on road courses, and that will be must-see TV.